Hello artists, and welcome back to Art with Mrs. Kellogg. This week we are going to celebrate and honor all our amazing moms. I thought since Mother's Day is fast approaching, we could create an art piece for our moms. And that art piece, you can use it as a gift, or you could even turn it into a special card for your mother. And after you finish the project, write a special thank you letter to your mom, or create a poem of appreciation inspired by your mom. Now, meet me over at my workspace because I want to tell you a little bit more about the art lesson and the art supplies you will need. This is an example of the Mother's Day art project we are going to create today. And as you can tell, you can create your project as an art piece that you give to your mom, or you could fold it and make it into a card and include a special message to your mom inside. Now let me tell you the art supplies you will need for today's project. You're going to need paper, and the size is up to you. Make sure that it's thick enough to apply watercolor to. You're going to need a pencil with an eraser. A black fine tip Sharpie marker is optional. You're going to need oil pastels. And since we're going to paint with watercolor in this project, you want to make sure you have a cup filled with water, a paintbrush, and I recommend using a wider paintbrush since we are painting the background, your watercolor set, and a paper towel. And don't forget to put down your art mat or newspaper before you start. Now would be a great time for you to pause the video, set up your workspace, and gather all your art supplies, and meet me back here to create some Mother's Day inspired art. Did you get your materials? Great, then let's get started. Here's some examples of the Mother's Day art we are going to create today. And I was very inspired by pop art. So pop art is a type of art where artists really focus on design, bold shapes, and bright colors. And that's what we're going to do today. Our bold shape is going to be those heart shapes. And you're going to have choices for this project, because if you would like to just make a piece of art and give it as a gift to your mother, you can do that. Or if you wanted to make it into a Mother's Day card with a special message inside, you could do that. Now let's start creating some art. Our first step is to fold our paper into 4 boxes. And one of our design principles is repetition, so we're going to repeat the shape of our boxes and repeat our hearts. So when I'm folding my paper, I want to make sure that it's even on one side, and especially if you're using a watercolor paper, you can use the heel of your hand since the paper's heavier and get a better fold. And if it's easier, you can stand up to do this. I have one piece of paper, this is one half, and my other half, and now I'm going to divide it into 4 equal parts. Each box will be worth 1/4. Now my next step is to sketch my hearts into each box, and I want to fill each box with that heart. Once I get the shape of the heart the way I like it, then I'm going to get rid of all my sketch lines. Now my next step is to continue drawing the heart into each box, and my goal is to try to make them all the same size. Unless you want to create a pattern or contrast, which is another principle of design, making one bigger, one smaller, however you'd like to design your artwork. So for me, I want to make them all the same size. If you find it helpful, you can use the first heart to help measure the approximate size of the other hearts. I'm going to continue sketching in all of my 4 hearts. After you've finished sketching in your hearts, it's up to you whether you want to trace your hearts with black Sharpie marker and define your lines in between the boxes. For me, I'm going to use oil pastel, and then I'm going to go over it with my pencil, and that's what I did in these 2 pictures here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the marker to trace my lines, then I'm going to add color into my hearts and trace over with a pencil. You can also use a ruler to help you draw your lines in. Since I decided not to use my black Sharpie marker to trace my hearts, I'm going to just start by adding color. And I want to keep thinking about my design principle. I want to repeat my colors. And I'm going to use what's called complementary colors, the colors that are opposite on the color wheel. So for me, I'm going to use yellow and purple, because when you put complementary colors, the colors that are opposite on the color wheel next to each other, they look really bright and dynamic. But the one thing to know about complementary colors, when you put them next to each other, they really are bright and stand out. But if you mix them, you make what's called a neutral color, which means you'll make a gray-brown color. So if you don't want a gray-brown color in your artwork, don't mix those complementary colors. So I'm going to use a light color and a dark color. And that's what's going to give me this dimensionality or three-dimensional look in my artwork. Also going to use a little white into the side, so I kind of have a light going to a medium value. Remember value? That idea of using a light color, a medium color, and a dark color. And where the light and the medium meet, I'm going to blend it, and where the medium value color and the darker color meet, I'm going to blend it. And if you're working with oil pastels, it's always important to look at the tip, make sure that your oil, especially the white's a tint, we mix other colors with it, we want to make sure it's clean to start with. So I'm going to start with my light and my dark, and then I may add some white to it. And I'm going to curve because I want the hearts to look rounded. So I'm using a curved stroke. And if it's easier, turn your paper. Now I'm going to mix the light and the darker yellow together in the middle to blend. So my goal is I don't want to make a striped heart. I want to make a blended three-dimensional looking heart. But if you wanted to create a striped heart, that's fine. Always remember, you're the artist. You're just learning and experimenting with these new art skills you're learning. So now I want to make this side a little bit lighter, so I'm going to add my white. White's a tint, it'll lighten this color. Okay, now that I'm done with that, it's time to add some more pencil work around my heart to make it stand out more. So you can't use marker into oil pastel, but you can use pencil. And the pencil line will come out darker, drawing into oil pastels. I'm going to turn my paper as I work to get. Now my next heart, I want to use purple or a violet color. So this I'm going to do some mixing. This is going to be my dark color, this is going to be my lighter color, but I am adding a lot of white into this section of my heart. So I'm going to start with the dark color first in this one. So to make this blue a little more purple, I'm going to add some pink into it. And then I'm going to add my tint over into this side. Then after I'm finished with that, I'm going to use my pencil to define my shapes more. And again, if you want to use different colors, or you don't want to use complementary colors, you have other color ideas, just go right ahead and do that. And the other fun thing about oil pastels, if I go out of the lines, I usually kind of erase some of the oil pastel away. But again, if I do that, I always want to make sure I clean my eraser. Now I'm going to continue my pattern. The natural pattern is yellow, purple, and then if I'm going this way, again, it would be yellow, purple. But I'm going to change that up because if I make this into a card, I don't want to do purple, purple for mine. So I want it to be purple, yellow. I'm going to continue adding color to my hearts. Now would be a great time for you to pause the video, fold your paper into 4 boxes, sketch in your 4 hearts, and then start adding your color. And remember to think of value, that idea of light, medium, and dark colors. And then once you're done with that, you can use your pencil to trace over your hearts to define them better. Then meet me back here because we're going to add some design work into the background and watercolor. Did you finish drawing and coloring in your hearts? Great. Then let's start adding some design in the background and watercolor. But remember, as an artist, you always have creative choices. If you just want to create some hearts and then just watercolor your background in, you can do that. But I'm going to show you how to add some design work. My main focus is to get the hearts to stand out. I don't want them disappearing into the background. So what I decided to do is use triangles as my design inspiration. And the pointy part is going towards the heart. And I'm just going to go around the paper and creating the wider part of the triangle at the top, and the narrow or pointy part will be pointing right at that heart. Then once I'm happy with that, what I'm going to do is I am going to trace my lines and then use my marker to shade those sections in. And once I'm finished drawing, tracing, and coloring in my triangular design, then it's time to add watercolor. And the color choice is up to you. Remember, you always want to think about that important principle of design, repetition. Well, that wraps up our Mother's Day art lesson. I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and I want you to always remember when you are creating art to relax, have lots of fun, and keep creating.